Let me start with something that happened on June 8th, 2026. Donald Trump sat down for an interview with the Financial Times, and he said one sentence, just one sentence. And I want you to hold on to this sentence for the next 20 minutes, okay? He said this. He said, Netanyahu will have no choice. I call the shots. He is not the decision maker, okay? Strong words, very strong. Sounds like Washington is completely in control of the Middle East chessboard, right? Sounds like the most powerful man on the planet is telling his regional partner exactly what to do. And the partner has no choice but to listen. 3 hours after Trump said that sentence, 3 hours, okay? Israel launched dozens of fighter jets and struck military facilities and petrochemical plants deep inside Iranian territory. The White House said nothing, no confirmation, no denial, no press briefing, complete and total silence. And immediately mainstream media across the world ran the exact same headline. Trump has lost control. Netanyahu has defied America. Israel is doing whatever it wants. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, jumped on social media right away and wrote this. This war has been humiliating for Trump and American power generally. When Trump announces he's going to call Netanyahu and tell him not to retaliate, and within hours Netanyahu retaliates, the humiliation just compounds, okay? So that is the story that the media wants you to believe. And I understand why people believe it. It has a very satisfying narrative logic to it. The underdog outsmarts the bully. The small country outmaneuvers the superpower. It's a great story. But today I'm going to do something that almost nobody in mainstream media is doing right now. I'm going to put 3 competing theories on the table. I'm going to analyze each one honestly and fairly, using actual data from the last 48 hours. And then I'm going to let you decide which one is closest to the truth. 3 theories. Same set of events. Only one framework that actually explains everything. Are you ready? All right, let's go. Now, before I break down the evidence, I need to introduce you to these 3 theories by name, because if you don't understand the categories, you can't evaluate the evidence properly, okay? First theory is called tail wags the dog. Most of you have probably heard this phrase before. The idea is simple. Normally, the dog wags the tail, right? The dog is in control. The tail just follows. But sometimes in politics, the relationship flips. The small actor, the tail, ends up controlling the big actor, the dog. In this case, the theory says Israel is the tail. America is the dog. And Israel has been wagging America into this war. Netanyahu is craftier than Trump. Israel dragged Washington into a conflict that the United States didn't fully want. And when Trump tried to stop Netanyahu from retaliating against Iran, Netanyahu ignored him, which proves that the tail is wagging the dog, not the other way around. This is the theory that CNN, the BBC, most of the major Western outlets are running with right now, okay? This is the mainstream narrative. The second theory is called anti-tail wags the dog. And this is where it gets more interesting. This theory says, America is not being manipulated by Israel. America is actively using Israel as what we call a proxy, a regional instrument to carry out strategic objectives that Washington cannot or will not pursue directly. When American and Israeli interests perfectly align, the United States steps aside and lets Israel act. And the public theater of disagreement, Trump saying, don't do it, Netanyahu doing it anyway. That theater gives America the cover it needs. America gets to look like the peacemaker while still achieving its military and geopolitical goals. The third theory, and this is the framework I'm going to build for you today, I call it the theater of consent. This goes one step further than the second theory. It says not only is America using Israel as a proxy, but both parties are jointly choreographing a performance. Each side is playing a different role for a different audience. Trump needs one image for American voters. Netanyahu needs a completely different image for Israeli voters. And critically, both sides needed Iran to retaliate. That retaliation was not an accident. It was the goal. 3 theories. Let's take them one by one. Let me start with theory 1, and I want to be very honest and fair about this, okay? I don't like it when people knock down a weak version of the argument they're disagreeing with. That's not intellectually honest. So let me give you the strongest version of tail wags the dog that I can. Here's the case for it. Trump called Netanyahu directly and told him not to retaliate. Multiple sources confirmed this. American officials said Trump genuinely believed he had convinced Netanyahu to hold off. Trump was so confident that he told the Financial Times on the record he will have no choice. I call the shots. He made that statement publicly before Israel attacked. And then Netanyahu completely ignored him. And that's not even the first time. The week before, Trump had a phone call with Netanyahu that, by Trump's own admission, did not go well. Trump confessed to reporters that he had cursed at Netanyahu, actually cursed at him because of Israeli military operations in Lebanon. The President of the United States was so frustrated with the Israeli Prime Minister that he was swearing at him over the phone. And on top of that, look at the domestic political pressure Netanyahu was under. Naftali Bennett, former Israeli Prime Minister, Netanyahu's main political rival, publicly stated that if Netanyahu followed Trump's wishes and held back, it would prove that Israel was no longer a sovereign state. Think about what that means for Netanyahu going into what's expected to be a very competitive election. He cannot afford to look like he takes orders from Washington. He needs to look like an independent commander who acts on Israel's interests alone. So the logic of tail wags the dog is real. Netanyahu had strong incentives to defy Trump. He has a history of doing exactly that. And the facts on the surface, Trump said stop, Netanyahu didn't stop, seem to confirm the theory. This is a strong argument. It has internal logic. It has evidence, and it explains why many serious analysts in Washington still defend this narrative. But here is the problem. And this is the single most important question in this entire video, okay? So I want you to really pay attention to this. If America genuinely wanted to stop Israel, why didn't it use its actual leverage? Think about this carefully. America provides Israel with almost its entire advanced weapons arsenal. Bunker buster bombs, cruise missiles, precision guidance systems. America operates the air defense network that protects Israeli skies. The Aegis destroyers in the Eastern Mediterranean, the early warning data, the mid-course trajectory tracking. America shares the intelligence that Israel uses to plan every single one of these strike missions. All America had to do was cut off one of these. Just one. And Israel could not have operated the way it did on June 8th. But America did not cut off any of them. Not one. America continued to provide full military cover for Israel, even in the hours immediately following the Israeli attack on Iran. Even after Israel had supposedly humiliated the President of the United States on a global stage. You don't continue to protect someone who just embarrassed you in front of the entire world. Unless you weren't actually embarrassed. Unless that was the plan. And this is where we need to move to Theory 2, because Theory 2 has 5 specific pieces of evidence that Theory 1 simply cannot explain Theory 2. And the tail wags the dog. Let me walk you through 5 independent sources. And I want to emphasize this, not from Iran, not from Hezbollah, not from Russia. These are from Western research organizations and from American politicians themselves. Source number 1. The Democracy for the Arab World Now organization, DAWN, based in Washington, the 500.c. DAWN concluded that American policy has transformed Israel from a close ally into what they call a regional proxy force. And they stated directly, they did not hedge this, that the crimes committed by Israel in the region are indistinguishable from American crimes because Israel is executing American objectives. The difference is that no American soldiers are dying in the process. Okay, this is a Washington-based organization saying this, not Tehran, not Moscow, Washington. Source number 2, Al-Shabaka, a Palestinian policy network with international scholars. Al-Shabaka argued that this war is not a spontaneous conflict and not a product of Israeli manipulation. They called it the product of a deliberate strategy. They described it as a joint colonial and imperial project between the United States and Israel, designed to eliminate resistance forces and reshape the entire Middle East region according to their shared interest. Source number 3, and this is where I need you to really pay attention, because this one is extraordinary. United States Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican, one of the most senior and influential voices in American foreign policy. He said this publicly, proudly, on the record. He said that controlling 31% of the world's oil reserves from Iran and Venezuela would be a massively profitable investment. And he called that scenario, are you ready for this? He called it China's nightmare. Okay? Let that land for a moment. An American senator is openly telling the world that the real goal of this conflict is not democracy, not human rights, not stopping nuclear weapons. The real goal is to control 31% of global oil reserves and to create what he calls China's nightmare. This man said the quiet part out loud. And I find it remarkable that this quote is not on the front page of every newspaper in the world right now. Source number 4, the Electronic Intifada. This publication, which specializes in Middle East geopolitical analysis, made the point that I think is the most strategically important of all. They wrote that the war against Iran is not just driven by Israeli Zionism. The deeper cause is American imperialism. And the reason is this. Destroying Iran will directly weaken both Russia and China. Think about what that means. Iran is not just a country with a nuclear program. Iran is Russia's strategic partner in the region. Iran is one of China's most important energy suppliers. Iran is a critical node in the supply chain that both Beijing and Moscow depend on. If Iran collapses, Russia and China simultaneously lose a strategic ally, an energy source, and a point of regional influence. That is why Lindsey Graham called this China's nightmare, because that is exactly what it was designed to be. Source number 5, Medical International, a German international health and human rights organization. They offered perhaps the most blunt assessment of all. They wrote that after clearing Gaza, after weakening Hezbollah in Lebanon, and after ending the Assad government in Syria, this is the perfect moment for the United States and Israel to reshape the entire Middle East in their favor. Do you see what that means? This is not a war that broke out by accident. This is not a war that Israel dragged an unwilling America into. This is part 5 of a long-term regional plan, and Israel is the primary instrument of execution. So when you put these 5 sources next to each other, Don Oshibaka, Senator Lindsey Graham himself, the Electronic Intifada, and Medical International, you start to see a very different picture from what the mainstream media is painting for you. The picture is not Netanyahu tricked Trump. The picture is when American and Israeli strategic interests perfectly align, America does not need to stop Israel. America just needs to step to the side and let the tail wag freely, because the tail is doing exactly what the dog wants it to do. Now let me give you the granular data, because theory without data is just storytelling. Okay? And I want you to be able to verify everything I'm saying. Look at the timeline of June 7th specifically. Not one event, not 2. 3 events that happened on the same day, and no major news network is connecting all 3 of them together. Event number 1. On the morning of June 7th, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, to seize and redirect Iranian frozen assets. How much? Between $12 and $24 billion. This money was designated to compensate Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait for war damages. Now, why is this more than just a financial measure? Why is this a weapon? Because for weeks prior to this, through the Pakistani mediation channel, Iran had one non-negotiable precondition for any peace agreement. 1. It was this: release our frozen assets and we will negotiate. Release our frozen assets and we will open the Strait of Hormuz. Release our frozen assets and there's a path to a ceasefire. That was the door. That was the only door leading to any kind of diplomatic resolution. On the morning of June 7th, the United States did not just refuse to open that door. They slammed it shut with $24 billion and handed the key to Riyadh. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi responded immediately and stated that Iranian assets are not a compensation